Hello, welcome to my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. Um, Something a little different we're going to be doing on the YouTube channel. What I'm going to be doing is brief little intros to the exams based on the content outline for each of the exams, starting with the Series 7, then I'll do the SIE, then the 6, then the 63, the 65, the 66. Just kind of telling you what's on the exam, what you can expect in terms of the exam itself. And then what we're going to do after we do that is explicate these content outlines. We're going to go through the high risk areas, ask you to print this out. In fact, if you haven't printed this PDF from the FINRA website, please do so because you'll need it if you're going to participate in future lectures based on the content outline. I had a research analyst. He was an all-star research analyst, institutional investor, one of the top guys. And he had failed his exam twice with two different tutors. And somebody I worked with at a firm went over to that firm and said, well, let me, see what Dean can do for him. And she called me and she told me the story. And I said, there's nothing but downside. Two times he's failed. And I mean, I don't know what it is, test anxiety, but if he's an all-star institutional investor guy, that's a magazine that, awards analysts for stuff. There's nothing but downside for me. But I said, but why don't I give him a call? Just kind of, feel him out a little bit. And, I won't charge you for that and see if I think I can be helpful because there's no sense wasting his time and your time and the resources if there's no help to be had. Anyways, it came down to something as simple as the content outline for the exam he was taking. He just hadn't been told how to tweak what he already knows, which is a lot for test purposes. How to take his real world kind of, knowledge and tweak it. He wasn't tweaking it for what, for lack of a better word, we call the testing fantasy land. Easy fix. He passed. Ever since, I've been a very big believer in doing this. In fact, if you go to Amazon, I did this for the old Series 7, the 250. I explicated the whole thing. You can buy that former explication for $10. I couldn't figure out how to make it cost more, but just went through each of it and told you what to test thing. Now, when we explicate this thing, I'm not going to be spending time on low probability things you may not see. I'm just going to spend time on high risk, high probability kind of things you can expect to see. All right, so let's talk about your Series 7. So, the idea here is maybe you're just starting this process and you haven't actually been told or know what the Series 7, what is the intellectual challenge to you? What dragon needs to be slayed? And so you're going to be taking an exam that consists of 125 multiple choice questions. And of those 125 multiple choice questions, I call those multiple choice items questions, I call them performance opportunities. And please pay attention to the performance opportunities and the weighting. As you see here, function 1, the test writing committee gets together and they base the exam on what are critical functions to being a broker. And function number 1 that the committee decides is critical is seeking business for the broker-dealer from customers and potential customers. New accounts are the lifeblood of a baby broker. If you can't open new accounts, you're going to be in trouble. Now, by the way, the test assumes you're a retail broker at Edward D. Jones or Merrill Lynch or somewhere like that, where you're going to be building a book of business. I know a lot of you are not, but that's what you need to assume in terms of taking your test. So 9 questions there. Opens accounts, obtaining, evaluating customers' financial profile, and investment objectives. Very important in terms of suitability. Doing that initial data gathering, getting the account open, because you got to get the account open before you can make any investments. And then providing customer with information about investments, key. Providing customers, let me get my annotation tool fired up here. Providing investors with information about investments. That's huge. I mean, by the way, that's what, customers expect a broker can do, right? They expect that I can give them basic product information. By the way, basic product information. Nobody expects you to be a guru, but we do expect you have a general understanding of investments, right? That is makes recommendations. The biggest part of those 91 questions is right there. Transfers assets, not a big deal. Maintains appropriate records, not a big deal, but that's 91 performance opportunities. Wow. That's where we want to spend most of our time. Critical function 4 to being a broker is that you obtain and verify customer purchase and sales instructions, agreements, process, complete, and confirms transactions. So pay attention to that weighting. 91 is where, the big weighting is. The big weighting is. Now, they testing questions for validity. So you're going to get what I call 10 experimental questions. These are questions that don't actually count. They're testing them for future exams for validity. They don't pass the validity test and they get removed from the data bank. This is how they introduce new items. Sometimes we'll get some debrief and somebody will see something for the first time and then it starts showing up routinely and that, we go, okay, they're starting to test on that. No penalty for guessing. So, when all else fails, guess B, assign it to the universe, move on. Candidates should attempt to answer all items. This really bugs me. You should not have a time constraint. 3 hours and 45 minutes is plenty of time to get this thing done. And if you find that out when you get down to the exam, it really irritates me because that means you actually haven't done any practice finals of 134 questions, performance opportunities to see what that feels like. I would tell you if you're thinking, you're sinking. So the only way you could turn this into a 3 hour and 45-minute kind of a thing is by turning aim and shoot, point and click questions into judgment questions that aren't there. I can't prove it, but anecdotally, the longer it takes you, the more at risk you are. It's not a good thing. They're not trying to sort people how quick they think. So they're giving you plenty of time. But, pay attention to that thing. Now, most people are not wired for 3 hours and 45 minutes. Most people are wired for about 90 minutes of, sustained concentration. And I highly recommend that you structure your study blocks accordingly. What I mean by that is, if you can carve out 90 minutes in the morning, 90 minutes in the evening, that would be great. And assuming you're working, man, kudos, we got a lot of people that are working and doing other things. If your full-time job is to study, you got 4 months with pay to do so, that's a different deal, right? Still think have study blocks, maybe do 90 minutes on one thing, change the channel intellectually, come back and do it. You also want to kind of, in your study effort, try and build up that muscle to be able to go down there and not get tired, once you're, 90 questions deep or 80 questions deep, however deep you are. You're going to get on a common scale. I'm wishing for all of you what I call a dream draw, but you got to be prepared for a face of death draw. I'm joking, but the draws are random. FINRA knows the draws are random, and randomly, some people get harder draws. I had a couple of people this week that sound like they got a draw from hell, but good news, they were still able to pass, and that's what you want to be, right? Intellectual abundance. So you can take down any draw that they happen to queue up for you. But anyways, that equating just means more people are going to end up passing than they otherwise would because they're going to round up. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing. That equating thing is nothing to be worried about. That works in your favor. It means more people are going to pass. Okay, so when we come back to the channel, if you subscribe to the channel, you can kind of see what I did here. So let me just go back and tell you what explication is going to look like as we go through these content outlines. I'm not going to start with a section of critical function 1. And the reason I'm not going to start with critical function 1 when I start, doing this is because critical function 1 doesn't have 91 questions in it. But as we go through these various content outlines, what I'll be doing is just below it say, okay, what is the test issue here? We're not worried about institutional communication because institutional investors are capable of protecting their own assets, right? We're concerned with retail. So if this thing is going to more than 25 retail investors in a 30-day period, it's going to require prior principal approval. Pre-distribution is what we mean by that. And if it's going to fewer than 25 retail investors, that's called correspondence. And there, the principal can do it anytime he'd like, pre or post distribution. And so that's kind of how we're going to do it. Now, I'm not going to be, as I go through these content outlines and explicate them, I'm not going to actually be, lecturing. I'm just going to tell you what are the high risk, high probability kind of things you're going to have to deal with. I get to options, the options disclosure document. We'll talk about, one from account approval, you got to have it back in 15 days, right? So that's the kind of thing we can expect in the explication. Okay, so that was the purpose of this little teaser. 2 things, I'm going to do this for each of the series exams, both FINRA and NASAA. I'm going to do the thing about how many questions, what's the timing, what should you do? If you have any suggestions about what else we could do in these little teasers or intros, please let me know. And I'll post this to the YouTube channel. And then as we progress in terms of adding content, there's already, if you're watching this independently of the channel, there's already over 40 hours of content, lectures for you on these various things. But I just thought this was another thing we could add to the channel. And so that's a, future publishing schedule, so to speak. Anyways, study hard. Make sure you're, taking your practice questions. The biggest thing you can commit is not doing all your practice questioning, exhausting whatever question queue bank that you have. Like, subscribe, comment, join us on our little subreddit. We have a subreddit called R Series 7. Good resource if you need some questions answered, or you want to talk to other people who are in similar situations studying for their exams. Thank you.